The fire, the fire, the fire. That's what we are calling our topic today. We are calling it the fire. We shall be dwelling on Acts 28, specifically Acts 28, verse 4, verse 5, verse 6, St. Paul. This is an incident that happens immediately after the shipwreck at the island of Malta, where St. Paul and the prison was a prisoner, and the other prisoners and all the other people in the ship are saved alive despite the very many risks that they faced in the sea. As in, if it wasn't for the God that St. Paul worships, definitely no one would have been spared. St. Paul says when they had not eaten for 14 days, he stood up and said, he asked them to eat, he blessed the bread and broke it and said, before you I speak today that the God I serve, the angel of the Lord whom I serve, the Lord whom I belong to, the angel appeared to me last night in a dream and told me that we shall all be spared. The ship will be wrecked, but we shall all be spared. So I encourage you to eat. And they ate. So after this, what St. Paul says, they find themselves in Malta, in the island of Malta. The barbarians at Malta welcome them and give them a very good reception. And then there's a fire. They've built a fire because it is cold. And Paul is putting some firewood in the fire. And then I read Acts 28:4. And when the barbarians saw the venomous beast hang on his hand, they said among themselves, no doubt this man is a murderer, whom though he has escaped the sea, yet vengeance suffers not to live. And he shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. He shook off the beast into the fire and felt no harm. Howbeit they looked, when he should have swollen or fallen down, sadder and died suddenly. But after they looked a great while, they saw no harm come to him, and they changed their minds and said, he is a god. And then now they start to bring people to him for prayers, and he prays for them and they get healed. The man, the chief in the area, his father has been ill, and St. Paul prays for him, and he is healed. But we're talking about the fire, and we are saying St. Paul, when the venomous beast hung into his hand, he was not frightened, he was not shaken. He just shook it into the fire, and he felt no harm. He felt no harm. And they looked a great while, thinking that maybe he was going to fall down and die suddenly. But when he did not die, and and no harm was coming upon him, they said he must be a god. We are talking about the fire. So here we see a fire that has made St. Paul to live, because he has dropped that serpent into the fire. So the fire here has made him to live. But then there's another fire in Daniel chapter 3, and this fire is not a good fire. This is a fire now that is meant to kill. The fire for St. Paul was made for them to be comforted from the rain, for them to feel warm because it was cold, it was raining. And the fire helped St. Paul because he dropped the venomous beast into the fire and he felt no harm. The whole of Daniel, there is another fire here in Daniel, the fire, where now the three Hebrew lads, Shadrack, Meshak, and Abednego, are bound into the fire. They are bound and then they are thrown into the fire. And the fire has been strengthened 7 times. It has been made to be hotter 7 times because King Nebuchadnezzar is angry because they did not worship the golden image that he had set up. So when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are thrown into the fire, the soldiers who have thrown them into the fire are themselves consumed by the fire and they die instantly. But King Nebuchadnezzar is very much amazed because after a while he realizes that these 3 men that were bound and fell into the fire are now walking around loose. They are standing and they're walking around loose and they are free. They are not bound anymore and they are loose. And he asks, and more than that, there's a 4th person in the fire, and this 4th person, he looks like the Son of Man, like the Son of Man. So he asks the captains and the princes and the counselors and the people around him. He asks them and says, "Didn't we throw 3 men into the fire? Didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire? And now how come I'm seeing 4 men walking around loose in the fire, and one of them is like the Son of God?" So again, so Nebuchadnezzar is surprised, very much surprised. So he comes near the fire and calls them. He says, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out, come forth, and come hither." And they come forth and they come hither. They come out of the fire. And the captains and the governors, and the captains and the governors and the princes, and all the people that belong to the king wonder. They look at these 3 men and wonder and say, "These are men whose bodies have power over the fire." These are men whose bodies, I'm reading Daniel 3:27. These are men whose bodies have power over the fire, because they have come out of the fire unscathed. They were thrown in bound and they've come out loose. Even their coats do not have the smell of smoke. Even not even even a strand of hair has not been singed by the fire. These are men whose bodies have power over the fire, servants of the Most High God. And remember, St. Paul also had said that the angel who appeared before me last night, the angel of the Lord whom I serve, and the Lord whom I belong to. The Lord whom I serve and the Lord whom I belong to. And the 3 Hebrew lads had also said the same thing. They said, "The Lord whom we serve, the Lord whom we belong to, is able to save us, is able to save us from this fiery burning furnace, and is also able to deliver us from your hand, O King." Fire. We are talking about fire. So we are talking about fire. For the 3 Hebrew lads, their bodies were above the power of the fire. Their bodies were above the fire of the power of the fire. But this level, they entered this level, this deeper level, because they had already made up their minds and said, "It doesn't matter what happens to us. In case our God forgets to deliver us for whatever reason, we shall still not go ahead to worship the golden image that you have set up, O King Nebuchadnezzar." So they made it clear from day one that they are loyal to the Lord their God, and that they are not compromising. And because of that, their bodies entered another level. So when they were in that fire, the fire had no power over their bodies. The fire had no power over their bodies. And St. Paul had also committed himself to serve the Lord, our Lord Jesus. And because he had committed himself, even when the venomous snake hung around his hand, he was not scared. All he did was shake it into the fire, and he felt no harm. And the barbarians looked a great while, and they realized that indeed this man, he's on another level. And they said, "This is a God. This is a God." What are we saying today? Today we are saying, we're talking about fire. Fire in Acts 28, which helped St. Paul, because he shook the venomous beast into the fire. And fire in Daniel chapter 3, which was meant to kill the 3 Hebrew lads. But instead of killing the 3 Hebrew lads, they ended up living. And Nebuchadnezzar declared and said, "This God they serve, because he knows how to deliver, this is the God that we shall all be serving as well." And he promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he said, anybody who's going to say anything about these people, to badmouth them, that man shall be punished severely. His body shall be thrown into the dungeon after being cut into several pieces. And when Nebuchadnezzar says something like that, he's not joking. It is true. He will do it. So this is my message for today, that we meditate on that word fire. And then we remember that when we are the servants of the Most High, and when we belong to the Most High, our bodies start to enter another level. As we continue to seek the Lord our God, as we continue to seek His face, we change from glory to glory. We change from glory to glory, and our bodies begin to manifest a higher level, a level where diseases cannot overcome us, a level where pain cannot overcome us, a level where situations do not come above us. We find that we are the ones on top, above, on top, above. So thank you very much. God bless you. Subscribe,